On this episode, we discuss Rebel Moon, Part 2, The Scargiver.
Now, there are rebels, but they're not technically on a moon, and the giver only gives one scar, but it is Part 2. So I'm going to give this just 1.5 Pinocchios for title honesty.
Oh.
1.5 Pinocchios is the prequel to 9.5 Weeks, right?
You don't want to know what he does with that nose, yeah.
Oh,
Dan.
I know exactly what he does.
Saucy stuff. Welcome to the Flophouse. I'm Dan McCoy.
Hey, it's me, Stuart, the Scargiver Wellington.
Oh.
And this is Elliot, Part 2, Kalen.
Yep.
Ouch, Stuart. Stop giving me scars. Ouch.
I can't help it. I got this nickname for a reason, baby.
I got so much scarred again.
You have as much reason to get that nickname as the main character of this movie who gives one scar, maybe, throughout the film.
I also give this movie one scar.
Oh man, prequel. That's a preview of your Letterboxd score. Did you
know what?
I
actually gave the first. I gave the first one star, and this one
one scar.
You know, I bumped up to 2 stars for reasons that I will get into in the movie. I liked it slightly better. It could be because I was more distracted. And thus, like, the movie kind of served as,
this movie is the ultimate second screen experience if it is not the first screen. If you are doing something else and you just want laser fight background, then yes, this is the movie for you.
I was in sort of a bad mood, and it distracted me from that rather than, like, before when I'm like, ooh, I'm going to watch a movie, and then the movie disappointed me so greatly.
Yeah.
So.
When Dan started his review and he said, because I was more, I assumed he was about to say invested, in which case I started loading a pistol.
Yes, that would have been very surprising. Yeah.
Well, I will say this movie puts a lot of like story and like humanity to characters that previously had absolutely none. I wouldn't say it puts a lot.
I was going to take issue with the word "a lot" there. Yes.
Generous.
It gives some sketch of some reason why you might care about these characters late in the game. Like that should not come. Spoiler alert, in the second half of your 2-half movie. Like, you should put that earlier so people can care about what the fuck's going on rather than being like, oh, you know, after the fact, maybe you like these characters now. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I checked out Rebel Moon. This is good effort, but this is too little too late.
When they do that, it is the definition of too little too late. But here's the thing about this movie, guys, and this is something that I was going to go back to in my summary multiple times, so I think I'll just state it here. This movie was clearly made by human beings, written and directed by human beings. The special effects were done by human beings. This feels like an AI movie. The look is the AI look of kind of glossy, blurry kind of stuff that would have looked cool in a fantasy or science fiction poster 20 years ago, but now is kind of overdone. The story is as boilerplate, boring, dull, standard as possible. The characters have no personality. The visuals are not interesting. Like it felt to me this was the closest I've seen yet of a movie that felt like it was made by an AI system in that style.
Yeah, like if it was revealed at some point that it was like, okay, Haley Joel Osment's character from AI made this movie, I'd be like, I get it. You got me, movie.
I get it. It feels like a little boy who if he eats too much, it just kind of bulges out his cheeks.
You're
did
right.
Make this,
Ellie, because even the images, the scattered images, I thought were genuinely kind of cool. Like. Do I enjoy seeing a lanky robot with several glowing eyes?
And antlers?
That kind of looks also like a suit of armor. Do I like that? Sure I do. But it also kind of feels like something that has been pulled from a bunch of, you know, human fantasy illustrators' work online and slammed together.
If you go, like, Instagram is full of images generated that are like robot Buddhists or like robots
in forests,
like all that kind of crap.
Robots fucking, all that stuff.
You don't need. People generate those,
A large part of the aesthetic of the creator is just that, which is like robots in rural settings.
And here it's the combination of that subject matter with the very like the blur and gloss and dull coloring that with AI hides the fact that it has errors. Where it feels ultra shiny but at the same time, like someone coated the lens with grease, the movie just feels it feels like a movie that was not even made by it feels like people used to say this movie was made by committee, and now I wish I could see a movie made by committee instead of a movie made by one computer that was just fed on all the things that exist already. But anyway, let's talk about Rebel Moon. So here's the thing. This movie is over 2 hours long. I mean, 11 minutes is credits, but it's over 2 hours long. But I think this may be the shortest summary possibly that we ever do on the Flophouse.
Yeah.
Because so little happens in this movie.
I bet we can derail this thing.
That's
another
our challenge today.
Another reason I liked part 2 more, shorter than the first half.
That's true. Shorter and also
Got that.
It was the easiest movie for the Flophouse that I think I've ever had in terms of taking notes while doing the dishes. Because just long fight sequences that I don't need to write anything down for.
On that very specific metric, 10 stars.
If you're judging this movie on convenience of taking notes while doing something else, again, 10 out of 10, A+, highest recommendation, perfect second or third screen experience. Stuart?
So...
okay.
He said yo, this means he's serious.
Getting real.
I'm
or he's
serious,
speaking
guys.
Spanish and he's talking about himself.
Time to turn this chair backwards for a second. So I feel like, this is the second of 2 movies. And
this is the second of 2 movies of a projected 6 movies.
6 movies, sure. So, but it isn't until like maybe 10 minutes before the end of the movie when Deborah Bloodaxe shows up with her rebel, shows up with their rebels. And one of the pilots is an alien that I'm like, oh yeah, there's fucking aliens in this movie. Like the first movie, like...
Had a couple aliens.
It had like a Jenna Malone's spider lady.
Yeah,
and there's like some other guys. Like, where are those guys?
When is
Why
Jenna Malone
couldn't one of their team be like a cool alien guy?
Yeah, well, this movie really, it targets what people love most about science fiction storytelling, which is harvesting. Long scenes of harvesting and grain, and also just guns that shoot things the same way guns do in real life. Like this movie is about.
I don't know. It shoots at like sparks and lava and shit fly out when you get hit by the guns.
That's true. But this movie is about grain and guns. Like that's pretty much it. An alien. You're right. When that alien showed up, there was part of me that was like that's similar to what we were talking about with backstory. I was like, too little, too late. You can't just throw an alien in at the very end and expect me to be like, oh yeah, it's a science fiction epic. Yeah.
This is just as a service to the one listener who was like, I wonder what the end of Dan's half-muttered sentence was going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. It was just going to be, I wonder when that Jenna Malone Spider Lady film is going to come out. The adaptation, of course, of the hit comic Spider Lady. It wasn't worth it, but I didn't want, anyone who has maybe problems with like threads being dangled and then not resolved to be upset.
No, I understand. No, you did a public service there,
I feel bad for the actor who was initially cast to be the third pilot, and they're like, oh, actually, we need to put an alien in this role. And he's like, but I told my parents.
No, sorry, we're casting an alien now. And then they've got to find an alien. Yeah. So let's talk about Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. Very few aliens, as we've mentioned, for a Star Wars ripoff. And a lot of grain, a lot of reaping and milling. So let's talk about it, shall we? We open with, here was my promise to myself before going in was I was not going to do any research, and I was just going to try to guess what was happening based on my vague memories of the first movie. Luckily, the movie understands nobody cares enough to remember. Yeah. So we open with a voiceover from Anthony Hopkins, who of course is the voice of a robot named James or Jimmy.
Jimmy the robot, yep.
He reminds us that Cora and Gunner, they gather.
He pronounces it Gooner, which is kind of wild, dog.
Just mean, you know what he's doing in his spare time.
That's who you were talking about.
Yeah.
When Stuart came in, he's like, "Are you sad because of the death of Gooner?" And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. I feel, and he's like, Gooner's kind of like a baby girl, right? Like he's cute and he's got like his little 5 o'clock shadow, but he can't really do much. He's he
saves Cora's life at the end, but he is very much the sub in their relationship. Sure, he is the kind of the gentle, softer man that the hard woman falls for. So Cora and Gunnar, he represents a nicer world, a nicer universe than she knows. Cora and Gunnar, they've gathered warriors.
That's how he pronounces it, guys. Anthony, are you going to correct Sir Anthony Hopkins?
No, I won't. That's
I'm
right.
assuming the director would not.
Cute videos he posts of him with his cat hanging out.
Yeah, and I also don't care enough to correct. Again, most of the characters in this movie, I do not know their names. I don't care what their names are. I had the captions on for part of it just so I could find out what their names were, because the captions would sometimes say who was talking. I know General Titus and I know Cora. Their names are said every 5 minutes.
Dan, can you name 5 characters in this movie
10
that
is
we
hard.
haven't already mentioned.
Yeah,
Oh,
name
that have.
You can't name Jimmy the Robot,
'Cause,
Cora, Gunnar, or General Titus.
Yeah, or
I think
Deborah Bloodaxe.
I think I
Or
could
Deborah
only
Bloodaxe.
have named 3 of those anyway, and those would have been the 3. I
Dan,
think
what's
I
the
couldn't
bad
come up
guy's
with.
name? Do you remember the bad guy's name?
If you get his first name, I will do 10 push-ups right now.
Darth
No.
Rebel Moon.
I mean, pretty close. Pretty close. Do you remember? You can't name any of them.
No, I
The
don't.
only other
They're
character
all-
I remember their name is the character named Den, because I was like, you got a lot of nerve, Rebel Moon, naming a
Yeah.
character after Den and not having him be a regular person in a barbarian body in a
A
fantasy
nerd,
world.
Elliot. He's not a regular person.
A
in a
nerd is a
barbarian.
regular person, Stuart.
I gotta tell you, when you said that about not doing any research, I didn't as well, and I was like, oh man, I'm not gonna remember any because they introduce, this is based on the 7 Samurai. They introduce 7 characters as the mercenary team plus all the other people in the movie.
Those are
And
all
I'm like,
villagers,
I'm not gonna remember this. And then as the movie started, I'm like, man, they could have just slipped a couple of them out the back door, and I would not have noticed. I'm like, are there still 7 of them here? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think there are. There's 1 or 2 of them that just kind of come and go. They kind of appear and disappear.
Well,
throughout.
one of them was a traitor. Charlie
Hunnam.
Charlie Hunnam's character
right.
was a betrayer, and
I
then
forgot about that.
Deborah Bloodaxe's brother,
Who died at the
Darian
end of
Bloodaxe,
well,
How
died
is
at the end of
Deborah Bloodaxe's brother doing these days?
Well,
Not great.
At the end of the last episode, last movie,
R.I.P..
remember he dies, and a random soldier is like, "I'll take his place." This random lady soldier, I loved him. I'll take his place, and you're like, Are you? Who are you? Like what? What? Okay, I guess so. But she's the one who has black paint over her eyes, Furiosa
Right.
style. Yeah.
And I think that, not that we're talking about the characters, so it doesn't matter necessarily from that stance, but I think that might be the person portraying that goes by they, them pronouns. But the thing is, there's so many different characters that I apologize in advance that we get it wrong because it's just because we don't know who any of these people are.
Don't worry, we're not going to be talking about most of them because they're not really that important. They're a cannon fodder for the most part.
Of course, we got to talk about my favorite villain of all time, General Atticus Noble.
Okay, so let's wait.
Admiral Atticus Noble.
Atticus
So let's
Noble,
get-
that's right.
Let's get to him. So let me just
Fuck
finish
that
telling you what
name.
the VO says, which is they were collecting warriors to save the village on the planet Velt from Imperial stormtroopers who have a dreadnought ship, and they said, we're going to destroy your village if you don't give us all your grain or whatever. And so then we see Atticus Noble. He died at the end of the last movie. Cora, our hero, killed him, right? Stuart, what happens to Admiral Atticus Noble?
Well, they picked him up and then they wrapped him in a cocoon and then pumped him full of juice, and he's all better now.
And he's back.
Possibly tougher.
Yeah.
It's tough. I don't remember exactly his skill set. I just remember he got wanked off by a squid monster in the last one.
Yes, that was the one interesting thing that happened in the entire movie last
I
time.
kind of liked the look of this med lab scene because, the doctor, very inefficient. I think that he would be blinding anyone else who was in the room with him, but has all of these huge glowing eyes, that
And he has
shine
got,
right in
a
people's
flat hat.
faces.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you see these holographic scans of the heart and the brain that, as this person's in this cocoon, this chrysalis,
it would
that was
be
Yeah, and
kinda
it's
neat.
kind of it's the cocoon material. It's kind of like Shelob's web that she covers Samwise in.
Yeah, this stuff would all look really cool if I hadn't seen it all before. If it wasn't all variations of stuff we'd seen, the same way that
True.
as we've seen with many of these movies that we these blockbusters that or would be blockbusters, this would be cool stuff if we hadn't seen a lot of it already in 15 years. Those doctor outfits look cool, but I just rewatched David Lynch's Dune recently, and the outfits in that look 1,000 times cooler, and they're really similar to it. So anyway. They know, but the baddie he's resurrected, Atticus Noble, he's back to life, back to reality, and he knows that the Scargiver, whose real name, we know her as Cora, but her real name is Atheles Les or something
Arthaleus, yeah.
Arthaleus. She's on Belt, the idyllic farm planet.
I have a skill set, and that's remembering dumb fantasy crap.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
The heroes have returned to the village. Aris, a young private who is stationed there, is told via hologram call from the bad guys that the harvest has to be ready in 5 days. And meanwhile, Jimmy the robot, he's wearing antlers, dressing like a shaman, just because it looks cool. No real reason.
Yep.
He's just walking
Just
around
hanging
in the wilderness doing nothing.
I was reading. I think it was a David Ehrlich review. I'm not sure, but like that talked about how much there was about the grain in this movie, how much like threshing happens, and about how hilarious it is that I mean, this is again based on the Seven Samurai, but like how important this grain is to this giant, universe conquering force in the same way it was to starving warlords in
feudal
Seven
Japan.
Samurai.
I will say
Yeah.
it's like if this was a better movie, then they could make the point for all the technological prowess this empire has. People need to eat. An army moves
Yeah.
on its stomach. Like they need that grain just to get back to their homeworld, basically, because it takes them so long and they have so many soldiers. And like
Right.
that's an interesting thing to talk about, but they don't talk about it. And like the grain. The harvesting the grain, I guess it's treated as if it's like a sacred event. But in Seven Samurai, at the end, when the villagers are they replanting or are they harvesting the rice? I don't remember. And they're singing while they do it. And the samurai are like, they're going to forget about us. Their lives have gone back to normal.
Right.
They don't care about us anymore. We've done our part.
We
It
have
is
no
such-
place in a world of peace.
Yes, we have no place in a world of peace. And also, it's not like we were heroes for a moment. And now they're back to the rhythms of this life that is less exciting, but in some ways more meaningful. And it's such a beautiful moment and a beautifully sad moment at the same time. This movie has nothing like that in its.
Yeah.
It's like they've.
There's like people with smoking swords, though, dude.
there are laser swords in it. That's true. A totally original idea to have a laser in the form of a sword. But anyway, so Korra tells the village leaders that Admiral Noble is dead, so the threat is over. But Aris is like, oh no.
I do love that like simplicity of like, no, man, you kill the leader and the whole team
it's all gone.
leaves. They're
And-
all
and the
like,
guy's like,
we got
by
to have
the
a new election, I guess.
And Aris is like, no, he's still alive and they're coming in like 5 days. So you didn't accomplish shit. And Jimon Hansu, he gives one of a couple of very half-baked, half-assed speeches where he says to the villagers, hey, it's time to fight for what you love. You have to harvest that grain in 3 days so we can use it for my strategy to protect us. Work begins at dawn. And this village of farmers is like, oh, at dawn? All right, I guess we can. It's like, they're
I
farmers.
guess I can sleep in a little.
Exactly. Like usually we get up in the middle of the night so we can start doing work. But it's so funny because they're like harvesting the grain in 3 days. I guess so. The grain field seems to be about 100 feet square. Like it's so tiny.
Yeah.
But anyway, Korra and Gunnar, they talk. He admits that in the battle that they just had at the end of the first movie, he wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing her. And they start making out.
yeah.
They have how would you rate their chemistry, their romantic chemistry, on a scale from 0 meaning none to 10 meaning their souls will be reincarnated together through all eternity?
Yeah.
Well,
You mean Jennifer Lopez and George Clooney and out of sight levels of chemistry?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I have to explain that I did just for my friend Tom's birthday, he screened a double feature of action movies.
I'm interested to see how this connects with what we're talking about.
The first one was pretty good, and I think I might recommend it later on. So stay tuned.
Oh, okay.
The second one,
Let me just move to the edge of my seat.
I was mostly enjoyed for dumbness qualities, and it was Fair Game, starring
oh yeah, Cindy Crawford.
And which Baldwin was it?
Is
Billy
it Stephen
or
Baldwin or is it Billy
Steven?
Baldwin?
I think it's anyway.
Listeners,
not Daniels.
right in.
and it's not manslaughter,
Oh,
guilt, or
well-
Alec Baldwin. Yeah.
One of the lesser tufted Baldwins was the star. And so seeing the negative chemistry that
They
Cindy
seem
Crawford
to
and this
hate each
Baldwin
other in that movie.
had.
They seem to
Yeah.
despise. So this isn't as bad as that. You're right. 0 would, I guess, be they hate each other.
Like he seems
obviously.
like a nice guy, and she seems to appreciate that. So I'll give it like a 2 or 3. Maybe.
Okay. Okay. But far from the kind. I mean, maybe it was love born in the heat of battle. So that a cut to they have just had sex. Now it's done. I guess in the R-rated version, we'll see it happen. I don't know because they're talking about releasing a harder cut of this.
They probably do it to like some space version of Hallelujah.
yeah. Hallelujah droid, yeah, or something like that. And so they're lying in bed, and in the afterglow, as always, you ask your lover about their tragic backstory. So he's like, hey, how come, since you were raised by General Belisarius, who runs the space empire,
The
why are you
Regent? Regent
Regent
Belisarius?
Belisarius. Why are you considered a criminal? And she goes,
Scargiver, that's an interesting name. Where's that come from?
Yeah. Now again,
I thought you just
dear
meant the scars
listeners,
on my back from your nails while we were in the throes of
Whoa.
passion.
I just want listeners to understand that, of course, I know that we're not talking about Belisarius Cawl, the Archimagos who invented the Primaris Space Marine technique.
Thank
we're
you
not
for
talking
making
about
clear.
him. We're
No.
talking about
thank
Regent
God.
Belisarius from the movie Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver.
Yeah, the movie we're speaking about today. And so he explains how she when she still worked for the Empire, she was the bodyguard of Princess Issa. We learned that last movie. The princess had started persuading her father to stop conquering things and crushing
Yeah.
other planets. And
that's why we're supposed to care about her. I missed that part because like at the end when they all like pledge their fealty to like the old bloodline or whatever, I'm like, why? They seem bad too. So
Yeah.
okay,
No,
thank you
she's
for
the
clearing
good
that
one.
up.
Also,
She's being
they're
set up as a
also
sort of
like they're also like kings and queens. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean,
we shouldn't
sure.
want them to be saved.
I already have problems with the monarchical
but
system.
they are setting her up as a sort of divine, almost Christ-like figure. So
okay.
she is the innocence
Of course,
embodied in a
of course,
child.
she's divine. She's the daughter of Carrie Elwes.
Yeah,
Dan,
that's true. Mm-hmm. There's two great.
Bobby fucking wobbly. Carrie Elwes.
Now, of the two great Carries of film, Cary Grant and Cary Elwes. Cary Elwes is certainly the lesser. I think Cary Elwes would admit that, but he is still
Wow,
wonderful,
okay.
still a national treasure.
Ruffling feathers.
Cary Elwes, if you're listening, I love you. I think you're great, but I think even you would admit that Cary Grant is a different order of magnitude.
Where does Carrie White fit in this?
Spelled differently, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I'm just talking about
Sure.
Cary Carries.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
So
You said great
and-
carries of film, so I had to think of
and not talking about the Carry On series of British comedies.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Not talking about the pig blood magnet telekinetic monster.
No,
That's
not
true.
that one.
Yeah, no, not that Carrie. So moving on, as we can list Carries forever. There's Carrie Fisher, of course, which is someone who fishes for carries in the sea of carries. But there's Cash and Carry, and also Carry On. And there's also Carrion, the Spider-Man villain, who is a zombie version of well, actually, let's not even get to him. His origin is complicated enough. Anyway, so Dan, I'll tell you more about this.
I can't believe Elliot stopped.
Elliot was about to digress even too much for him.
Yeah, too much. Dan, I'll tell you about the origin of the Spider-Man villain Carrion offline.
You know what?
Like.
I honestly am interested, but you're right. We probably shouldn't.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have so much plot to get
There's
through.
so much plot to get through. So she explains, Princess Issa was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't conquer things anymore. And her dad was like, yeah, that's right. So they were going to go christen the last of the battle dreadnoughts. And Belisarius was like, I've fought for all my life for this army. I'm not going to give up now. And told Cora, you have to kill the princess. And so at the christening, as a blindfolded string quintet plays like they're in Eyes Wide Shut or
I
something.
kind of like that.
I like this too. I liked that there was live scoring for all this murder that was about to happen.
Yeah.
They just got they went with it. They're like, okay, I guess it needs to get more intense and scary.
And it's
Yeah.
also funny, like, I feel like this scene kind of reflects, I think, the general like Cliff Notes version of a story that these movies are, because like neither the queen nor the princess, it looks like they spent more than like maybe 10 minutes in the like hair and makeup chair.
Yeah, even
and I'm
Carrie
like,
Elwes'
the
beard
fucking-
looks super fake.
you're like,
the
give me
villain looks weird as shit. He looks like a woolly willy. They did.
He does,
His
yeah.
beard
His
also
hair.
looks
I mean,
terrible.
in a way,
Yeah.
that makes him a good villain because
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
looks like it breaks your brain to look at him.
Like the ultimate villain, Wooly Willy. Yeah.
We
But
don't
like-
have time. Stick your face in this pot of paste, and then we're gonna blow iron filings onto you.
Like they didn't even give the princess an updo. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. Like what? Like Never Ending Story Princess Leia. We're talking about these
with
are
like
classic.
Oh, these are
yeah,
classic
you're right.
princess
It's true. Her
hairstyles,
hair
is
is
what you're
just
saying.
down. Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so they kill the king and queen, and Cora is like not sure if she can shoot the princess, and Belisarius is like, do it. And the princess goes, it's okay, I forgive you. And Cora shoots and kills her. And then Belisarius is like, and then she gets upset, and Belisarius is like, oh, by the way, I'm going to blame all this on you. And he starts going, she just killed the king and queen and the princess. And everyone's going, yeah, traitor. Like they jump into the play acting so fast, and she fights her way out, runs away, and she decides she's going to honor the princess by being more than a weapon. She's now going to be, I guess, a farmer and a lover. And that's her backstory. Next morning,
Joker,
we begin.
Toker.
Next
Sorry, go
morning,
on.
we begin the
Well,
famous.
I think you kind of glossed over the fact that when she shot the princess started shooting out glowing light.
I
And
wasn't
that's
sure
all
if that
we
was
see.
the laser beam working or if that was because they never talk about it again. So I didn't know if that was just the weapon or if that was her body being magical.
I presume, look, sometimes with these movies, if I'm having a hard time following everything, particularly if it's, the second half of a two-part movie that got split unceremoniously, I have the Wikipedia open. So I knew ahead of time, we were headed towards, that princess was going to be alive at the end. Spoiler for anyone who was not intending to listen to all of our synopsis for some reason. But so I was like, oh, this glowiness, this must be related somehow to how she survives. But we don't know yet. We don't know yet until, Rebel Moon Part 3, Glowy Girl.
Glowy Girl, yeah. That's what it's going to be called, Glowy Girl. Yeah. And so the next morning, everyone goes out. They start harvesting grain in various degrees of slow motion. This goes on for a long time. And we go to the King's Gaze. That's the dreadnought that Noble commands. And he goes, I need to be put back in command. And his doctor's like, oh, we just have to run some tests. And he shoots the doctor and kills him in anger. And everyone's like, yeah, you're in charge again.
Checks
That's all
out.
it took.
Yeah, you passed the final test.
And they're like, oh, we're sorry that scar is still on your chest. The med droids couldn't remove it. We'll work on that. And he goes, no. It was given to me by the Scargiver herself. I will cherish it. And it's like, it's not that good a scar. It just kind of looks like an octopus sucker got stuck to his chest.
She's known for, It's
she doesn't do it at all. Mostly she cuts people's heads off or shoots them with guns. So the idea that she's the Scargiver makes no sense.
I'm just saying it's in her name,
Did she give someone else a scar in the first movie? I don't remember.
Unless the thing is that she's giving herself scars like Zazaz, the Batman villain. For each victim, she cuts a scar, but she doesn't seem to be doing
I know
that.
Zaz. You don't have to explain.
Right. It was more for
Stuart
Dan.
like an idiot.
Dan wasn't super familiar with Carrion, so nobody's familiar with Zaz. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Zaz, a villain who honestly does not have that much Zaz.
Yeah, certainly no Riz.
No, not at all. No. So there's more harvesting. We see that Titus, the Jimon Hansu's character, who was an alcoholic, is now dipping his flask into just a barrel of plain water. Oh, perhaps he cares a little bit. The harvesting, it's all set to soulful village, kind of choral and music. It goes on forever.
Yeah, it
finally,
takes forever.
Blessedly, night falls.
The one nod to futuristic crap is the thing, the truck they throw all the grain onto is floating. That's the only thing. Other than that, it's old school scythes and
they're basically Amish, yeah. And the horses they ride are alien horses. They look a little different. They sound a little different.
Which I gotta say, they're the whole trad lifestyle push here. I'm not into.
No, not me.
I feel
either.
like this is the kind of movie that John Krasinski would be like, this sounds good.
But also,
this is my fantasy.
But also, in a better movie, they would be setting up duality between the mechanized, inhuman empire and the kind of personal, individual, agricultural, kind of close to the land village. But instead, they're just they can't be bothered to put a point on it. So they're just going with this shorthand of grain good, farming good, plow good. These people are good because they plow. And to be honest, there are until the heroes come in, they're all white anyway, right? They look like white trad people, which is. Whereas we
also know they're good because they have this big ceremony where they give all of the heroes their own special banner.
We're getting to when everybody gets their own knit banner. Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we get to that, I want to dive a little bit into Stuart. I feel like your strong dislike for John Krasinski is moving into a new zone where you're starting to
I don't get a trad political
ascribe characteristics to him that I don't necessarily associate with him.
With John Krasinski.
Two things you dislike, and you're like, I bet that guy is.
Oh, well, I don't know.
I'm just wondering where it's coming from.
I feel like A Quiet Place has a pretty strong and a pretty obvious trad family structure reading. The idea that they're we live in a world where if you make noise, aliens will eat you. Let's pump out a bunch of fucking babies.
Yeah.
So that's stupid.
You do need to continue. If you have any interest in the continuing of the human race, you do need to have babies at some point.
Yeah, but I
you
feel
just put it off until maybe we figure out the alien problem.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, yeah.
You don't always need to make those decisions.
If you can put off a baby for work reasons or whatever, you could probably do it for for
alien invasion reasons.
I mean, I know, Dan, that you share his John Krasinski's belief that the CIA is a necessary evil in the world, and that it's not evil at all. It's actually a good thing.
I mean,
That's
is
what
that
John
just
Krasinski
based on him
says.
being in a TV show about it, or is that a
Well,
real
he probably
thing?
has said
He
it
did an
in
interview
connection
after
with,
visiting the CIA headquarters, and
Yeah.
he's like, everybody should be so thankful that the CIA's out there.
Oh.
I also would like to admit, I don't, in the political sense, I don't have a lot of understanding of like the usage of trad. I recently used trad to refer to like trad menswear fashion, like a trad look.
Uh-huh.
And
the menswear Twitter guy beat you up.
no, well, yeah, famously,
it was Jesse. Jesse Thorne beat him up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he works
violent
for Jesse.
group. No, it was with Audrey, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" Because she like only thought of it as this political.
Well, I mean,
thing.
everything-
Or she's like, I thought you were talking to traditional Irish folk music.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, we live in a climate right now where everything is political. I only just recently learned how Mac Tonight has become a symbol of alt-right racism over the years, which I don't love.
Not you, Mac.
Really?
Exactly. I was devastated to learn it. And so everything is political. Everything has that angle, which sucks. But I want to take a moment after that to just celebrate Stewart's intense, passionate dislike for John Krasinski. Someone who, my opinion on him is like I don't really think about him one way or the other. But Stewart, so much of your brain space is spent mad at John Krasinski. And I want to cherish that and recognize it and
Thank
honor
you.
it.
Yeah, stoke that fire, please.
Yeah, to me, he just seems like a guy, but yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate, in this topsy-turvy world, there are certain like rocks we can cling to.
Yeah, and one is that Stewart does not like John Krasinski. And I'm looking forward to Stewart's power broker-sized takedown of John Krasinski 20 years from now.
And I'm a passionate man. My fiery blood burns hot. And I feel like this podcast is a great way for me to share those passions.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the world.
I think that's
like
true.
talking about Warhammer and my dislike of certain famous people.
You have to vent your hot Indiana blood sometimes,
Yeah. We're known for being a passionate people. Us Hoosiers.
I mean, it's the one state where they were like, daylight saving? No, thank you.
I don't know. I mean, I know. I not to disbelieve your lived experience, Stuart, but I experience you as more like me, where there's a lot of anger there, and it all gets directed inward at oneself.
I mean, but a certain amount of it is being directed inward to, I guess, one of the two John Krasinskis that live inside him. There's two John Krasinskis in all of us.
There's always spillover, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll do other podcasts where I talk about other celebrities I don't like.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Goodness, yeah. I'm just looking forward to Stuart's new podcast, Krasinski. Which one is worst? You'll be surprised at the conclusion Stuart gets to. Anyway, Stuart's opinions about John Krasinski don't necessarily speak for the entirety of the Flophouse, just because I haven't thought about it that much.
Yeah.
That's my disclaimer. Okay, so Noble's back in charge, harvesting. The heiress, he reports back to his superiors something, and Admiral Noble is like, well, I guess he's picked sides. He knows that the young private who's been stationed at the village has taken the village's side. Now, guess what they're doing, guys? Exciting science fiction epic. They are milling the grain. We get to watch them milling the grain for a while.
Okay, cool.
They say, we're the millers. As they do it.
They do say that as they're doing it, yeah. And, okay, then it's that night. The village girl who's in love with Aris, I think her name is Sam, but I only because
she's the one. He saved her from being assaulted by the evil soldiers.
Right.
That's right. She gives gifts of hand-woven blankets and banners. Each one gets their own symbol. And Gunnar's, she's like, you're the heart of us all. So it's just got a big cartoony heart on it. And if I was Gunnar, I would be like, what is this? Everybody else got like lightning bolts and like mountains and monsters. So I got a big goofy heart. Come on.
And this is one of those, I don't know about you guys, but I love it when a movie has characters not really do anything. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, and I love you because you're so good at fighting and doing this other stuff. And you're like, you didn't see any of that, honey.
No, she is investing so much personality into each of these characters through just the gift she's giving them, much more than we've seen. And this is where I want to talk about something. This is where I'm going to digress to talk about something related to the movie, which is the aspect of personality. It seems like what this movie thinks is that we think characters are cool or charismatic if they are badass fighters and super buff, when in reality, I think audiences are drawn to personalities. Think about this. Here's my thought expressed.
Okay, sure.
Think about Star Wars. Who is the character in Star Wars that everybody seems to gravitate towards? Han Solo, right? People love Han Solo. Is he a super badass? Not really. He's kind of a screw up. Like there's something cool about him, but he's a screw up. But he's got so much personality, partly because of the way Harrison Ford plays him, partly the way he's written in contrast to Luke Skywalker, who has minimal personality in some ways. He has so much,
he
he
wants
has
to be a
whiny
Jedi,
farm boy
dude.
personality. but and he becomes a Jedi. I mean, as a Jedi, he has less personality than he had before.
Yeah.
But
Well, and like Luke Sky, I feel like kids can identify with Luke Skywalker because his wants are similar to theirs.
yes.
But Han Solo is like the cool older brother.
He's aspirational in that way.
Yeah.
But so much of it is just that he has so much personality. It's not that just that he's a badass. Here's an example we're not supposed to talk about anymore because he's a guy people don't like anymore. But who is the opposite of a badass? Woody Allen was the star of many movies because he has a lot of personality. Even if he has a personality that you find irritating, his personality is very clearly defined and has a lot of detail to it. I think audiences are drawn to characters who, whether they're likable or not, whether they're attractive or not, whether they're charismatic or not, have a lot of personality. And the characters in this movie have no personality, nothing.
Yeah.
They're nothing differentiates them. And it means that you kind of don't know or care who anyone is.
Well, and this doesn't give them any more personality, but failing this, at least give them something sort of relatable. And this goes back to me saying like, yeah, I did kind of like this better than the first one for reasons associated with like, look, it all comes in the form of sort of a dumb generic info dump where like everyone goes around the table being like, what's your story? You know, like that kind of thing. But at least
They do that.
at least
In a little bit, we're going to get to it. They do that, yeah.
At least when that comes,
They go around the table going, what's in your wallet?
yeah. When that comes, those stories are like generally like tales of like sadness or what they've like lost or whatever that make you relate to them versus how we are introduced to these characters. In the first movie where it's just like we get a bunch of action scenes that don't mean anything, but they're there to be like, this new character's pretty cool, right? Because we meet them doing this action thing, you know?
Look how cool this character is. Not look how interesting or relatable or just identifiable the character is, you know, as a character with a personality. But
Yeah, I mean, this movie does suggest like, would Seven Samurai have been better if there was like the townspeople were super excited to have these samurai show up and there was no conflict between them at all?
No one, even Zack Snyder, I have to assume, does not think this movie is as good as Seven Samurai, which is an amazing movie. But you look at that movie, which is the template for so many adventure movies, and it's like, yeah, there's conflict between the heroes and the people they're protecting, which enriches it. The characters have different personalities. Toshiro Mifune's character, who's like, you know, Toshiro Mifune is basically the Wolverine of any movie that he's in. His character is like a screw up who is lying about who he is, and the other ones are like, okay, we'll just accept him. And when he dies, it's incredibly, you're like, ugh, like this guy, like he probably shouldn't have even been there, but he gave his all, and like he did in the end. Like he doesn't even have a full set of armor. He's not wearing pants when he dies. Like,
did you guys see? Have you guys watched Shogun yet? Have you guys watched the new Shogun
I watched
series?
the first episode. I haven't watched the rest yet.
I hear very good things, but I've not.
Yeah, the character Yabushige is like, the actor is clearly channeling some like Toshiro Mifune energy, and he's like such a scoundrel. And it's the same actor. He was the guy from Ichi the Killer with the piercings in his cheeks.
Oh, really? Oh, the one.
Yeah.
He cuts off the tip of his tongue because as punishment, right? I love
great,
sweet
yeah.
things, so I'm going to sacrifice that part. Now I really got to watch it.
Yeah, you should watch, I think you'd like it.
Does he still have the piercings in his cheeks and he can open
Of
his
course,
mouth real wide?
yeah.
But there's the linked to that personality is the fact that, guys, why do you think people really responded to the first Star Wars movie? Do you think it was because there's an elaborate mythology and it's really like the characters all have, there's 1,000 characters running around? Do you think it was because it's a fun-ass movie? It's super fun to watch, and the characters look like they're having fun during a lot of the movie.
Yeah,
I feel like people went to see it initially because of the promise of spectacle, but the reason why it endured is because of the fact that it's fun.
It's fun, and I think that it was fun spectacle that they were seeing. They weren't seeing. It wasn't the spectacle of person after person being shot in slow motion, sadly, with laser blasts. It was characters running around doing things in big spaceships, and also that was stuff that people had not really seen in a movie at that level, whereas we've seen it. There was novelty to it, I guess, is the other thing.
Yeah.
But this movie is so unfun. Like, it's so not fun at all. And we go to, anyway, they're giving out banners. The descriptions of these characters, as Dan was saying, they imbue a lot of character to these characters that otherwise don't have them. And it's like, oh, this village girl is very probing judge of character since we haven't seen anything that would lead us to believe these. There's a village dance. General Titus sings a song in a made-up alien language. And I was thinking, this is the kind of scene you see a lot in John Ford movies, where you just see like a cavalry dance or like people on the frontier kind of partying.
Right.
And those function as like a way of saying to you, this is the way people used to live. We're going to live with them for a little bit. Whereas this is all made up science fiction nonsense. Like none of it's real or means anything. So it's not accomplishing the same thing.
And I don't think it gives enough flavor. It feels like it gives you plenty of like vanilla.
Yes, and it feels very vanilla. That's the thing. There's nothing specific about it.
It's not accomplishing that. I think that in a plot sense, it's trying to be like, here's the calm before the storm. Here's like the last minute, like they're all happy together and they've been accepted into the community and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the violence starts.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
But,
I feel like there's that's done so well in like Fiddler on the Roof in the wedding scene. They're dancing and literally the pogrom starts.
The dancing sequence isn't as good as Fiddler in the Roof.
Well, that's true. But also that like, I don't know, when something is it's harder for me to if you're going to try to get me invested in a rural dancing scene in a made up science fiction world, the dancing better be good. It better be interesting. Like, it better be something I haven't seen before, as opposed to it just looks like I'm watching Space Seven Brides for Seven Brothers for a moment.
Yeah, I better see like Sonic and Tails dancing their little hearts out,
just dancing
and
their
then
butts
making
off.
out in a corner.
Yeah, and then getting pregnant somehow. Yeah. So the next day, there's a prepping the village.
Yeah, it's pretty mapped out.
Well, prepping the well, I mean, I don't know how they do things, but they're prepping the village for battle. There's a whole montage of that. The villagers all seem like they're already really good with weapons. They put weapons in their hands, and they're really good shots. They're really good at chopping the heads off of straw mannequins. There's not a lot of training that has to be done, which is good because they don't have a lot of time. They go get Korra's crash dropship.
I mean, that's the thing is like, there's no, I mean, obviously we know what this movie's going to give us, so we know that they're going to win. But like, there isn't enough of a feeling that they're like, yeah, we're gonna die.
Yeah, I keep the
like
movie,
we're not good at this. They're like, no, everybody's super good at shooting, and their guns are amazing.
Yeah,
yeah. You need Axl Rose to come in and be like, "You're gonna die."
Yes, I do need that.
Yeah, it would be helpful. I hate to keep doing this. I hate to keep just comparing it to movies that do a better job of this. But if you watch Mulan, it gives you a better sense of like, these people have to shape up and become soldiers.
Yeah.
Like, they don't know what they're doing.
I mean, that song rules.
It's a great song. Yeah. As mysterious as the dark side of the moon. Yeah, it doesn't get better than that. Yeah. But it's just like, we've seen this stuff done in movies so many times. To do it this half-assed is just like, feels lazy to me. Okay, let's keep moving. Because they find Korra's ship, they hide it behind a waterfall. The droid keeps watching from a distance, does nothing to help anybody at any point.
He's hoping that someone will bathe in that waterfall at some point.
So he's just like a perv droid.
Yeah,
he's just like, where's Sheena where I need her?
Yeah, exactly.
Night falls. This is when Titus talks to the heroes. They go around the table and they tell their stories. Every single one of their stories is, the Empire came and destroyed my village or city, and so I vowed revenge. It's the same time every time.
Well, and like when Titus tells his story, so he leads off and he's like, everybody has to tell the truth, no lies. And I'm like, okay, so people are going to reveal moments of personal weakness.
He's like, we're playing two truths and a lies minus one lie.
But like he makes a point of, like his story, at least there's some element where he's like, I'm ashamed that I took away the opportunity for my soldiers to fight back. I surrendered thinking I was saving them, but in fact, I killed them.
They were all executed.
So there's some element where he's like, look, I made a mistake and I'm ashamed for it, and so I'm trying to atone for that. And everybody else is just like, yeah, the Empire's bad, so you're not going to see me running.
You're right. It's funny that he's like, the truth, no lies, and it's like, they didn't tell these stories before. Why not? Yeah, there's nothing.
I feel like it's all like super surface backs. Like I feel like part of the thing is that like all these characters were picked because they're like legendary like fighters, kind of, right?
Well, also that setup, and eventually we learned that like Jaimin Hansu's character knows who the Scargiver is.
Yeah,
like,
that it's really Athel. What's her name again?
That she killed or at least thought she killed the princess, et cetera, et cetera. But him like setting it up with no lies is a weird thing to do, if not for like trying to be like, are you going to tell us about the princess?
This is
all
your chance.
princess killing?
And Korra doesn't tell them, but she goes, oh, by the way, Titus has been drinking water instead of liquor. Like, that's the secret she reveals. And they're all like, You SOB, you pulled a fast one on
I love
us.
I love his idea that like I gotta keep it secret that I found sobriety.
Well, I can understand that he does not want
I
them
get
to
it, you
know
know?
that like he cares enough to stop drinking.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's
But
like
it
when
is a
somebody
silly
orders
secret.
a non-alcoholic drink, like a non-alcoholic beer from me. I often offer them a glass so they don't have to feel like.
Well,
I
that's,
mean, well, that's in the context of a bar where they feel peer pressure.
I
I,
would
don't
love
think
it-
anyone's gonna be like in the context of training for like fighting. They'll be like,
No, I
I,
would
think
love
you
it
should
if
be
they-
drunk for this.
They picked up his flask and they drank and they go, Titus, are you pregnant? And you didn't want to tell us?
Yeah, love it.
Then
but,
it would, yeah. That would.
But
be
it is a. I feel like the characters are not really, except for Korra having killed a princess. The characters are not allowed to be like complicated characters. Even Titus's thing was, I made a mistake when I tried to save my men, and like the secret that he's ashamed of is that he's not drinking anymore. Like they have to be heroes, and there's no shades of gray. You know.
So she has a nickname, presumably given by somebody else, where she's called.
I mean,
the
if she gave herself
Scargiver.
the nickname the Scargiver, that would be incredibly uncool.
I had a
That's
friend.
like the
who
Edge
tri-
naming himself the Edge. You know.
Yeah, I had a friend in high school who tried to give himself the nickname Bones, and we're like, you can write Bones on your baseball cap as much as you want, buddy. Nobody's gonna buy it. But so somebody else gave her this nickname, and then I think they did that before she was framed for murdering the entire
Yes,
royal family.
She was already the Scargiver. Yeah.
Don't you think they would have come up with like a new, less
Right.
flattering nickname, like
It's-
the Child Killer or something?
Supersedes the scar giving, like
Or even the traitor. You know.
the-
Yeah.
Lady Regicide, they called her.
Yeah, like something
Real
that like
Lady Regicide. Yeah, kill that princess out now.
Well, yeah, like
kill the
highlighting
king
that she
and
killed
queen.
highlighting that she killed, like theoretically killed the defenseless princess would
Yeah.
have been, as opposed to be like a cool name. Try and give her a name that's like diminishes her
Right.
Yes.
legend
The,
a little
the
bit,
faithless or something.
Where I could
don't know.
understand it if she was still called the Scargiver by rebels, but
Uh-huh.
the royals, like the government, called her something different. You know.
Mhm.
But then this is more thought than
She
than
needs
was
more
put into
nicknames.
this.
Is what I'm saying.
She needs she needs better.
Korra,
nicknames.
Arthaleus. the
Yeah, for her
Scargiver.
trading card, there needs to be a space for all of the
Yeah,
different
for her
aliases.
aliases. Yeah.
Mhm.
She has more
Daughter
names
to
than a
one.
character in a Russian novel. I mean, this is
Yeah.
nuts. So, anyway, the next day, Korra, this is when she hides her ship behind a waterfall. She encounters James the robot. He also feels regret and hopelessness and tells her they can't win because even the robot has to be dour and serious all the time. And it's like, guys, remember those robots from Star Wars? Remember how sad and serious they were? I don't, because they were super fun.
How one of them was like a sassy little guy you didn't understand, but you knew he was sassy, and the other one was a real fusspot.
Yeah, exactly. Like remember how they instead of how they had the cattiest, gayest robots that were ever in a science fiction movie, and we loved it because there was so much personality to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
But instead, this robot is very sad and depressed. Very. I mean, it reminds me of Patton Oswalt's bit about the Star Wars prequels, where it's like, yeah, remember how cool Darth Vader is? Oh yeah. Well, you see him as a kid and he's sad. Like remember Boba Fett? Oh yeah, with the helmet and everything. Yeah, you see him as a kid and he's sad. Like it feels like Zack Snyder was like, yeah, that is the way Star Wars should be. Everyone should be sad. So anyway, he's like, you can't win. Blah blah blah. The dreadnought reaches the village, and Noble and his lieutenant, they're like, oh, we can tell from the sky. They arranged the grain for strategic purposes. Why don't we just go to that building where all the women and children are held and just kidnap all of them? And they decide to do that. Arthaleus, Korra.
So wait, their plan was, so the reason they had to get that grain cranked out, they had to crank the grain,
Mhm.
was because they need to have it ready to
Are you
use
cranking
it
my
as
grain?
both a bargaining chip, which they never really use, and as like defensive measure, because
Well,
they're
there's-
like, the Empire's not going to shoot the grain because they need it, but that does not matter at all. There's like,
No.
that is out the window immediately. They're like, just shooting grain.
Well, they say the Empire needs this
He
grain.
hates this grain.
And as rational actors, they will not destroy the thing they came here for. And we can also use it to hide behind, like sandbags. And that is
Yeah.
a good strategy if you're not dealing with Atticus Noble, who does not give an F what happens
Yeah,
to
that's
the grain.
true.
Like,
So-
he's
He's a
back
wild
from the
boy.
dead with a
Yeah,
new attitude.
He doesn't
I gotta
give a
say-
G.
I gotta say, as much as I was like, you don't need to bring the bad guy back from the first movie for the second one. He's the only one who seems to be having fun, man.
Yes, that's true. He does a lot of Nazi smiling in this movie, I would call
And
it.
he's got possibly the worst haircut I've ever seen. Like, if I had to look it up, it's like worse than Jim Carrey's in Dumb and Dumber. It's I'm sorry if my listeners out there are like all the Stewart listeners out there, not you guys listeners, just the ones who only listen to my voice.
Sure, yeah.
That are out there that are like, I just got that haircut. I think it looks really cool. I'm like, I'm sorry if you went to your barber and asked for the Atticus Noble.
said, give me the one where it looks like a bowl cut by way of Hamlet.
Stuart, have you been releasing a cut of these episodes that's just your voice?
Yeah, people love it. It's a lot of me saying sure and and wowzers.
So Cora, she cuts her hair for battle, just like the historical Joan of Arc or the non-historical Furiosa in the movie Furiosa.
And it kind of looks like Noble's haircut. So maybe that's like a traditional going into battle haircut from the mother world.
The baddies send out their drop ships and Noble lands, and he just starts taunting Cora. If you want, and she goes, leave now or die. And he goes, I think instead I'll destroy the village unless you surrender to me. It's kind of the same challenge that Titus was given. And Cora is about to surrender when Gunnar, he rings the bell that signals the villagers to attack, and the villagers do, and Gunnar runs off with Cora, and the villagers are just beating the shit out of the bad guys. They're just slaughtering the elite troops of the Imperium. Like, it's ridiculous.
Like they're Fremen and the Sardaukar getting this
similarly, they're popping up out of the ground, they fire, they go back in again, it's amazing. And Laser Sword Lady, she does some slow-mo laser sword fighting. Why don't the bad guys shoot her instead of fighting her with laser swords? It doesn't matter. It's just supposed to look cool. It doesn't. But she's there defending the women and children who soldiers have been sent to
the laser
kidnap.
sword lady, her name is Nemesis. So I'd appreciate it if you remembered her cool name, Nemesis. Her backstory
played by Duna Bay, who has been in much, much better movies. Yeah.
She in her backstory, the Empire screwed her over, so she used laser swords to chop off her own arms or hands or wrists or whatever.
To replace them with traditional robo-fighting gauntlets. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
I can see that coming down the road. I'm like, I don't think Stuart has a comment here. I think he just thinks it's cool.
I mean, if you told me this character has had to cut off her own hands to put on robot hands that are programmed with the techniques of the greatest sword fighters, I'd be like, that's a really cool thing. But it doesn't feel cool in the movie.
It would have been cool if they did extra stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, but all they do is sword fight.
They're just hands.
Well, the thing is that sword fighting is not mostly in the hands. A lot of it is in the rest of your body and the arms.
It's hips. Yeah, you got your core.
It's a little bit like being, I'm going to be the greatest baseball hitter ever. I'll just cut my hands off at the wrists, and then I'll hold the baseball bat better. It's like, well, most of the power is coming from the rest of your body.
That's just the entire plot of the movie Rookie of the Year, Elliot.
No, Dan. Stuart, Dan says, Stuart, that is his shoulder that gets injured, thus giving him a better throwing.
Yeah.
It's not he doesn't get his hands cut off and then a famous baseball player's hands sewn on like in Cowards Bend the Knee.
And then he becomes the best at bunting. He's just a real good bunter at that point.
They call him the bunter. They call him Billy Bunter.
Just because you bring up the silliness of using the laser swords against, I also later on when Jimmy shows up, we'll get into it, but
Jimmy's going to show up in a couple minutes. Yeah,
he beats the shit out of a bunch of space Nazis, grabs a gun, and then he just starts whacking people with that gun. I'm like, why aren't you shooting people with that gun or using, I don't know, you must have some sort of robot powers, but instead you're just punching.
With this movie, the hero characters, and again, maybe it's a way of differentiating them so they look cooler, but they'll have a battle axe and they'll rush against a bunch of guys with lasers. The guys with lasers will wait until the battle axe guy is close enough to kill them. They will then pick up the gun, shoot a couple of people, throw the gun away, and then just go back to running at people with a battle axe. And it's so it makes sense from a what would look cool fighting point of view, but from a fighting point of view, it doesn't really make sense to throw away your distance weapons so that you can run at the guy who has a distance weapon.
It would have been cool if they made any effort into making people fight differently. The robot should fight like a cool, tough robot as opposed to a robot that does flips and stuff. Maybe
as opposed to just they all kind of fight the same way. I mean,
unless he was a circus robot, then that would be cool.
Yeah,
robot,
Acrobot. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So they're fighting. Noble, he just leaves at a certain point. It just goes back to his
he realized that he's like, this is pointless. I'm going to just
this is boring.
blow it up
I don't want to watch
orbit.
Rebel Moon Part 2.
Yeah, one of the heroes jumps into a ship and they fight and Noble kills him. This guy's name is Den. I only knew that from the captions. He's a local farmer, I guess, who is involved. Cor and Gunnar, they fake that their dropship is injured so that they can be brought back into the dreadnought and saying, oh, we've taken hits, you've got to help us. They weaponize the compassion and very real concern that the soldiers inside show for their injured comrades. This is the most mercy or heartfeltness of any character in the movie.
Yeah.
And it is the bad guys trying to administer medicine.
I did bump up against this.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and look, I understand that, like they're part of a bad system and this happens in war all the time. But in like narratively, I was just like, oh, these people like are like med people who seem to care about like we'll get you put back together, buddy. Like that's what like
Yeah.
It was not like we'll get you put back together and then you'll be back down there killing those rats. Like,
or like okay, fix them up so that we can throw them in the meat vats so they can be molded into new soldiers.
Yeah.
So
They're not like orcs. They're not like, oh, meat's on the menu, fellas.
No, they're like, don't worry, buddy. We'll get you patched up. We'll take good care of you. And then, I don't see any actual wounds. And then our heroes just get up and slaughter them. And it's like, all right, well, you really took advantage of their desire to help their fellow man. But that's war, Dan. I mean, that's the thing. In Star Wars, actually, I was going to say in Star Wars, the bad guys are all bad and the good guys are all good, but this is more real. But in Star Wars, the bad guys are not all bad and the heroes kill them all. Anyway, we're fighting an army of forced child soldiers. Oh, that's too bad. I guess we have to blow them all up? No, you don't have to. But anyway, on the ground, battle, fight,
But I mean, when it's forced child soldiers versus like carnivorous teddy bears, I feel like I'm going to land on the side of the teddy bears.
Yeah, there's that part.
So I guess that's true. Yeah, I was
then
still
the teddy bears have their picnic where they,
they have a little song.
They
barbecue
eating,
them. Well, we see them try to barbecue. Which one of them was it?
Han Solo.
Han.
Yeah. And he's trying to
blow
the flames out. It's great.
Was technically a teddy bear's picnic. Yep. But except, Dan, it wasn't fully beneath the trees. It was the tops of the trees, right? Or I guess it's beneath the canopy. But so there's a lot of fighting. It's very somber, very serious, heavy strings, choral music. This movie is treating this battle between a fictional future space empire and a fictional farming planet with all the seriousness it deserves. The same kind of seriousness you would expend on a real battle that actually happened. And the lead sword lady dies. The heroes briefly think they have won, but then the baddies send another wave of troops in with like a stumpy laser tank mech. It's like a tank that shoots lasers and it walks on 4 stumpy legs. And they act as if this is the scariest thing they've ever seen. And it looks kind of adorable. Like it looks really goofy, but...
Yeah, it kind of looks like one of those like tiny water bears. What are those tiny little
tardigrades?
things?
Yeah, it looks like a tardigrade. A big tardigrade with a laser on it. Cora and Gunnar, they're on the Dreadnought. They split up. Cora's going to go set explosive charges in the engine room on this big glowy piece of machinery that the subtitle, that the captions told me was called the Neuralink. And Gunnar's supposed to go get a ship so they can escape. Battle. The lady who was the lady who was upset that Blood Axe got killed in the last movie, she blows up the mech tank. Noble, he's like, the Scargiver is on the ship. Lieutenants, fire on the village. And they're like, but our own soldiers are there. He's like, I don't care. Just fire the cannon, destroy them all. But what about the grain? Well, if we kill our own men, we'll have fewer mouths to feed, won't we? Because all he cares about is getting Cora. Battle. The Space Prince, remember him? He gets a little speech about not wanting to die in battle, but he will if he has to. It's the least necessary speech I've ever seen in a war movie ever. Another tank mech shows up, but Jimmy the Robot shows in. More solemn men's choral singing to celebrate the sacred moment when a robot starts fighting a tank.
And blows up a tank. Hey, when Jimmy gets shot, so there's like goo, that glowy goo that comes out. And I couldn't tell whether that's plasma from the weapon that is on him or whether it's like
melting
robot blood. But either way, it didn't seem to really hurt him.
I think it's just hot plasma because he just wipes it off. It doesn't seem to bother him, And again, as a military robot, the hardest of hardened killers, he does a lot of punching and flipping guys over. And eventually he gets a gun, he shoots people. So back up the Dreadnought. Gunnar has started the escape ship, but Cora gets found by Admiral Noble, who I kept wanting to call Admiral Nibbles, but it's Admiral Noble.
It's fun.
That's
a good pet name.
Yeah, the Dreadnought is about to fire its cannon at the village when the bombs in the engine room go off. It takes these guys forever to recognize that there are bombs covering the engine. They're just, or the Neuralink or whatever. They're just looking at them, and it's not till.
Well, I mean, the Neuralink's the last place you check for bombs, dude.
That's true. Even though you'd know that Cora was just in the engine room.
I do like that the engine room of this space Dreadnought is like an old-timey steamship.
there are guys with shovels shoveling coal into the furnaces, which is a cool. It's a
kinda
cool
like
touch. I like it less when Korra just starts murdering them and they're fighting her, and it's like, well, you have a laser gun and they have shovels. Like this is you're not the hero in this situation. But I do like that. I do like that idea. That's a nice anachronistic idea. The bombs go off. It knocks the trajectory of the shot off, so the cannons don't hit the village. They just hit, I guess, the village on the other side of the planet. So this is one of those. It's like a whole planet where there's just like 40 people who live in a village together, and there's nobody else there. As the dreadnought falls from the sky, Korra has her rematch with Noble. It goes on for a long time. This is a long fight, and not in a fun, they live long fight way. I found it just to be in kind of numbing, they're still fighting, I guess, kind of way. Eventually, Noble is choking Korra, which allows Gunnar to stab him with a laser sword, and then she chops his head off, hopefully never to be revived again. They escape the crashing dreadnought in a drop strip that they also crash, and Gunnar is badly injured, and he's like, Korra, I love you. And a fleet of rebel ships led by Devra Bloodaxe, they come in, they start fighting all the bad guy fighters, and
there's one alien.
There's one alien. Yeah, everyone cheers.
Thank God Deborah Bloodaxe is here.
Yeah.
The character that I definitely remembered existed.
I mean, it's a character, more of a name than anything.
Yeah, and Gunnar dies. Well, Korra cries.
Now, just to clarify, Devra Bloodaxe is not related to the Bloodaxe clan of space orcs. That's a completely different thing, although they are kind of rebellious.
Thank you
now,
for making that
what
clear.
about Moonblood Good? Are they related?
That's a really cool actor's name.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
blood is good, guys. It's it keeps us alive.
It's very good. Yeah. I mean, I would go as far as to say beyond good, just necessary. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize I was doing a podcast with a couple of Draculas.
It's good to have in your body.
Vampire PSA. Blood's good.
I'm Dracula for blood. Does the body good? And then he has a blood mustache. Yeah. There's a commercial where a kid vampire is looking at his future self in the mirror, and then his girlfriend shows up in the mirror, and he goes like, "Oh, I better drink this blood now. It's gonna get strong."
Get strong. Only 90s kids remember, or 80s. I can't remember what that was.
He wouldn't even show up in the fucking mirror, dude. He's a vampire.
That's true.
He's a vampire. Actually, he shouldn't be looking in the mirror. Yeah. So the villagers, they win. A bunch of people die. The villagers hold a funeral pyre for those who died, and Korra admits to everybody, she's like, "I lied about who I was. I assassinated the princess." And Titus goes, I always knew, but you didn't assassinate the princess because she's still alive, and I figured wasn't going to tell you until this was all over. And Titus says,
I needed you to be powered by regret.
Yeah.
Distract you.
I figured you wouldn't fight as well if you didn't think you had something to prove. He says, your mission now is to find the princess and fight. And people are like, I'll find the princess and fight alongside you. And they say the phrase, find her and fight, so many times that they go, find her and fight. Find her and fight? And finally, even James the robot, and Korra goes, to find her and fight, and accepts her quest. That's the end of part 2. Now, here's the thing. I thought that this was originally a trilogy, and I was like, okay, so part 3 will be finding the princess. No. This was originally a trilogy, and they split part 1 into 2 parts, and they plan to do the same for the other parts of the trilogy. So this will be a 6-chapter series. So who knows when they'll find this princess, if they ever finish this thing. But, guys, from what you've seen, do you think this will carry a 6-movie series?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If they keep going at this rate, but maybe by the 6th movie, I'll kind of like that one. It'll just barely edge its way into likability. But I don't think this was...
It's kind of like the Saw franchise, where if you watch enough of them, you're like, oh,
yeah, you get
I hate these, but there's something about the the way they like do the big reveal at the end with the music that I can't help but love.
Yeah, I tried to get on that train. It didn't happen.
I don't recommend it. I was only able to do it, I think, because I was like,
you're sick.
I was like bedridden for 2 days, so I'm like, I'm going to make my life worse.
You're like, what would Jigsaw do to me in this situation? He'd make me watch the Saw movies when I can't leave my bed.
Yeah, I heard you were doing that. I'm like, I'm a follower. Maybe I'll do that too. And then Stu and I can talk about Saw. Then I'm like, no.
I
watched one. I'm like, no thanks.
Dan, Dan, you're not just a follower. You can be a leader sometimes too.
Thank you, friends. No, I don't think these movies were like particularly successful for Netflix. I mean,
it's so
certainly
hard to know. It's
based on the budget that they had.
I mean, these movies are I don't understand why. I mean, Netflix just announced another movie that they're spending like $300 million on. And it's one of these things where it's like, Netflix, you will not be able to get that money back, you know? But
not this way. Like you've already dipped your toe in like
Dip something.
you dipped something in like the world of theatrical distribution because you put things out just to get like
for awards, yeah.
awards qualifying runs or whatever. But like, I don't know, if you're going to do this blockbuster shit, why not actually put them out in theaters where movies still can make money, and then you are vertically integrated or whatever, so you can be like, and then once it's done, you can only see it on Netflix. Like, that's going to be its home, you know? Like, I don't understand the model where we're like, we're going to do blockbusters, but just for, you know,
Yeah, this movie was
with
not
something
as
something like Rebel Moon Part 3, I don't think is going to get people to be like, what's this Netflix?
Yeah, I got to
keep hearing
subscribe
about?
to this thing so I can see the third Rebel Moon.
Now, here's the thing. So this movie, according to Wikipedia, the budget for the two movies together was $166 million. That's a lot of money, but that's not as much as I thought it was. To get two movies out of that is not bad, but to get these two movies out of it is a mistake to me.
It's always bad.
The whole concept behind this was what? Like, I'm going to give you a more mature, harder-edged version of Star Wars, right? And instead, I find it less mature and less harder edged than Star Wars. Like, it feels so like meaningless. It's so fluffy and meaningless. Like, it's like a styrofoam movie. And it feels weird that someone like Zack Snyder, who can make whatever he wants, like, this is what he does. It feels very lazy. That's
like,
what he does, you know?
do you guys remember when Anakin killed all those younglings? That was brutal.
Yeah.
That was
Talk
brutal.
about hard-edged.
Now, if it was a styrofoam movie, though, like a sort of Michel Gondry version of Rebel Moon, then
that would
I might
be
like
fun.
that.
I might be on, yeah.
If it was made out, everything was really made out of styrofoam. But like, when she cuts she's like, I had to cut my hands off to put robot hands on. It's like, yeah, I saw that in Star Wars, and it was a lot harder edged when a guy cut his son's hand off, while they were fighting. Like that, it feels very, maybe that they're not accomplishing their stated mission, with this movie.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Let's get into final judgments, whether it's a good, bad movie, a bad movie, or a movie we kind of like. Again, it's a Rebel Moon movie. Even if I liked it slightly better personally than the last one, like, being the best Rebel Moon movie is not
damning with faint praise. Yeah,
and I actually like this one less than the first one.
Yeah, no, and I can see that too. I could see that version of it where it's like, at least we see a bunch of different stuff in the first one than this one that kind of stays in one place. But
this was essentially one giant battle scene is the vast majority of the movie. And it's not like say what you will about the like Lord of the Rings Hobbit movies where they're like those battle scenes are inflated, but there's lots of different things going on. The characters are doing different stuff. Like
there's a dwarf riding a goat or whatever.
Yeah. Whereas this is just kind of the same stuff over and over again. And it's all very muted colors and kind of blah,
And either way, bad is my answer, but like also like Zack Snyder is a guy where like I feel like we shit on him a lot, and the thing is like I feel like he had potential. He had potential. I'm not like I think he could do a good movie, but he's gone so far down this road that is the wrong road, and he's not going to get better because he's only been lauded for it by a bunch of weirdos on the internet. So
he definitely, like, when he first came on the scene, like 300 was a movie that like I genuinely really liked a lot of. I thought the politics of it were kind of gross.
But
it was like, oh, I feel like I'm watching a movie that is just one heavy metal album cover after another, like being shown at me, and I kind of like that. But then it was like the imagination of that gave way to like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do the stylistic things over and over again, but not doing the different.
Yeah. And he was adapting
stuff,
something that existed that fit his style.
That's one of his more successful. Like the Dawn of the Dead is one of his more successful, and that is a James Gunn script. I think that he needs. Collaborators.
Say what you will about his Watchmen, which is not a great movie, but it certainly is. I certainly like it more than his recent stuff, and I think you're right. Maybe he's a guy who can bring an extreme style to an adaptation, but is not at his best with original material.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say it's a bad movie. I think it's tough to say which Rebel Moon I like better or less. At least the first one kind of has a twist. So that's, I guess, kind of interesting. And there were more aliens. So I guess, that Charlie Hunnam was betrayed them.
Yeah, that's true. There's a betrayal, yeah.
So there's like some friction between characters. There's a character that we don't know if they're good or bad.
I am gonna. It's strange when I'm not on the same page as you guys, but love it 100%. Great movie,
Wow,
my
weird.
favorite of the year. It's gonna be hard to beat.
Okay.
It's top of my list. No, I also think it's a bad movie. I found it to be so. It's just so like boring, and there's no. It's so unimaginative, and I feel like I've wasted a little bit of the time I have, limited time I have to spend on this earth, watching it. And the only thing that puts a smile on my face is that the movies that I watched right before this meant so much to me that I'm like, okay, good. At least my average is I'm watching more movies that are interesting than movies that like this in my life, Yeah, so I'm gonna give it
you watched like what, Leonard Part 6?
Yeah, Leonard Part 6, Ghost Dad, all the Bill Cosby movies. He's great. Anyway, what's he been up to? I haven't checked the news on him in about 30 years.
Oh no.
No, he's terrible. He's a monster. But yeah, I would say so definitely crawl, don't run. to see Rebel Moon Part 2.
Hello, podcast recommendation service.
Hello there, young man. I'm looking for a new podcast to listen to. Something amusing, perhaps.
Oh, what about Beef and Dairy Network?
Something surreal and satirical.
Well, I would suggest Beef and Dairy Network.
Ideally, it would be a spoof industry podcast for the beef and dairy industries.
Yes, Beef and Dairy Network.
Maybe it would have brilliant guests such as Josie Long, Heather Ann Campbell, Nick Offerman, and the actor Ted Danson.
Beef and Dairy Network.
I don't know. I think I'm going to stick to Joe Rogan.
The Beef and Dairy Network podcast is a multi-award-winning comedy podcast, and you can find it at MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
Somewhere in an alternate universe where Hollywood is smarter.
And the Emmy nominees for Outstanding Comedy Series are Jetpackula, Airport Marriott, Thruple, Dear America, We've Seen You Naked, and Allah in the Family.
In our stupid universe, you can't see any of these shows, but you can listen to them on Dead Pilot Society, the podcast that brings you hilarious comedy pilots that the networks and streamers bought but never made. Journey to the alternate television universe of Dead Pilot Society on MaximumFun.org.
Hey, this podcast has sponsors, and this week the podcast is sponsored in part by Factor. It's summer, guys. It's summer. There's all this stuff going on. You got to go to the beach where you're going to get on. You're going to be in one of those.
You just gotta
pyramids of of water skiers.
Got to do it.
You got to do it. You got to then you got to I don't know. Open up the municipal pool and swim some laps. You both manage the pool and you got to swim in there.
Yeah, I mean that's why you manage it, so you can get that time in. Dan, have you ever experienced a summer?
I'm not sure, but the point is you got to
get one of those beach dogs that you can put sunglasses on and like a bandana around his neck.
Yeah,
or sunglasses and like a Hawaiian shirt. Yeah,
that's a cool dog.
Point is, for all this, you're gonna need some fuel. You got to fuel up for summer with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Ready to eat in just 2 minutes. See, that's where that was all leading to Factor.
Oh yeah,
with 35.
So logically, looking back now, I'm amazed I didn't see the clues.
Yeah,
Mr. Policeman, I gave all of them to you with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You'll always have new
Now, Dan, I don't have to eat all 35 meals at the same time, right? Because that's a little too much for me.
No. You can space them out. Recommended one per meal time.
Okay,
Make
great.
your day delicious. From breakfast to dessert, stay fueled. There's that word again, with easy, nutritious options. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. You can choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply just eat well balanced. I've had some of these Factor meals. I am not a fussy eater in that I will eat anything, but I'm a critical eater of quality. I'm like, is this good? Is this good what I'm eating? Let me think about it. I like these Factor meals. I think they're high quality, particularly extra high quality, knowing that they come prepared. You don't have to worry about it. It was a nice break when I had one of these, in the fridge to just, toss in the oven or microwave. Mm-hmm. Or however I chose to reheat that day.
We were sent Factor meals, and I only got to have a little bit of it because my wife tried one and was like, "Okay, well, this is what I'm going to have for lunch at work
Mhm.
every day now. And so she enjoyed them a lot. I liked the ones I had, but that shows you if you get them, you gotta. It's like the Trix rabbit or something is around and might try to take them
exactly.
from you because they're that good.
So if you're interested, head to factormeals.com/flop50 and use code flop50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code flop50 at factormeals.com/flop50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. And I actually think that's all we got to plug unless Elliot,
I
you got some.
I like that the code is flop50 because it means that we're going to be doing this show for 50 years,
Yeah,
baby.
you know it.
Woo-woo. I don't know if you want to mention Hercules or
Yeah, I just
something
love to
on
remind
those.
people that my Hercules comic series from Dynamite Comics is in comic book stores now. As this episode is coming out, I think the 4th issue is about to come out. And it's further adventures for Disney's Hercules. You know him from the movie Hercules, and now he's starring in the comic book Hercules. And it's all gonna. I'm writing the final issue of it right now, actually.
Ooh.
And these the individual stories are going to build till it gets to a big epic conclusion. And don't worry, you're going to get to know each of these characters before the big epic conclusion. So you're going to care about them when it happens. It's going to be great.
Was writing these issues laborious?
Oh.
Oh, because of Hercules, right? It actually wasn't. I'm having a lot of fun writing.
Now, Elliot, I don't want to depress sales of individual issues.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
But will these ever be collected? This is just for my personal
I
interests.
believe they will be collected, but at modern comics today, often the sales
You
of the
never know.
individual issues will justify the sale of a collection. So I hope it sells
Okay.
well enough that it can be collected in the future because I think it'll read really well as a collection. But it also reads well month to month.
And then hopefully it'll come out in some big, oversized artist format with little notes in the margins by Elliot Kalin and the artist. Oh,
Sure.
man.
And I also want to mention, I do another podcast, 99% Invisible Breakdown, The Power Broker with Roman Mars. We're breaking down the greatest book about municipal corruption and also municipal infrastructure ever written, The Power Broker. Going over to the 99% Invisible feed, but finish this episode first.
Yeah, don't get confused, people. Here's the thing.
Similar stuff, similar levels of content.
It's kind of its own podcast, but it is within the 99% Invisible feed. It's
kind
all
of
the
like-
same feed.
Yeah, it's like
I thought you were
once a
going to say
month.
it's kind of like the Flophouse.
It's kind of, well, it kind of is. I mean, like, I'm amazed
They're
at how,
summarizing
honestly, the degree to, like, the number of, like, silly jokes you get in there that Roman allows, and not only allows, but laughs at.
He likes it. Yeah.
Amazes me.
Against
so.
all odds. Yep. I still want to make it fun and entertaining. I mean, the book is amazing, but got to make it entertaining. And it's like I get to take over the 99% Invisible feed once a month and tell people the greatest bedtime story ever told, the life of Robert Moses.
Let us go on to letters from listeners. Listeners like you, perhaps. Did you write this letter? This letter is from Monty, last name withheld.
So if you're Monty, maybe you wrote this letter.
And I apologize right at the top. There are going to be a couple of Russian names in here that I probably will not say correctly. And perhaps my friends can help me with them, or maybe no one knows. But anyway.
It's pronounced Boris Badanov, Dan.
Monty, last name withheld, writes.
Xenia Onatop.
She was on a top, wasn't she?
Normally, sorry, I was just thinking of a James Bond villain called Boys on a Side. Anyway. Normally, your podcast is my go-to for accurate Russian revolutionary history. So you can imagine my dismay when the episode for Argyle, Elliot repeatedly referred to the anarchist hacker character as Bukharin. I thought this might have been a screenwriting goof, but IMDb confirms the character is actually called Bakunin.
Oh.
As I hardly need to tell you, Bakunin was an anarchist philosopher and political rival of Karl Marx, while Bukharin was a Bolshevik and leading economist of the Soviet Union. However, it's understandable these two might get mixed up. Their names sound similar, and both have a lot to do with the question of Marxism and the peasantry in Russia. Bakunin, again, I don't know if I'm saying this right, believed Marxism would lead to a minority dictatorship of industrial workers over the peasantry, while Bukharin new economic policy was in part driven by the need to shore up the worker-peasant alliance, which had been strained by the extremities of civil war. I'm sure this is a one-time slip-up, and you'll be back to the usual high level of academic rigor the Flophouse is known for in no time. That's from Monty. So
Thank you for the correction, Monty. I apologize. That's exactly it. I just got their names mixed up. And I do get them mixed up partly because they were both wrong. It ended up turning into a dictatorship of one dude over everybody.
And I got to say, thank you for sending in a correction and still listening to the show and
Yes.
having the patience for us to be better.
yeah, not throwing your phone into a lake because of our lack of accurate.
I mean, it
Russian.
hurts you more than anything else. You just got to get a new phone. It's just like in Goodfellas.
That's
She's
true.
like they'd spit on the ground, spit on their own carpets when the FBI would come by. I can't imagine that, spitting on your own carpet.
Yeah, that is why would. So this is from Andrew, last name withheld, who writes,
Andrew WK.
"Hi, wow. Oh man, prepare for some good party vibes.
Yeah.
Hi, Peaches. We wanted to thank you for not one but two recent references to our favorite obscure creature, the tapir. It may feel like a tossed aside remark to you, but our hearts flood with joy when you hear you mention these strange, ancient things that are not quite an elephant, not quite a donkey, but man." Anyway, we even live and work in the rainforest with field biologists who hear the word tapir and have no idea what we're talking about, or when we show them photos of our tapir friend at the animal rescue, they are somewhat rightfully confused about what they're looking at. So we really appreciate the representation. Since you all seem to be fellers.
We are
When you all
fellers.
seem
We are
like
fellers,
fellers,
yeah.
good fellers.
We're not good fellas.
Good fellers. The like, what would that be? Like the sort of a farm mafia?
Yeah, good fellas would be like a rural mob.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a
yeah.
Justified type mob. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What
Like
a
we're living in a holler.
TM. Since you all seem to be,
TM it, Dan. What are you TMing? Justified? I hate to break it to you. We
since
didn't
you
get
all
there first.
seem to be fellow tapir connoisseurs, we have also created a tapirtacular television and film quiz for your enjoyment. So I'm glad that we had a plot light movie so we could get to this quiz, which I actually cut from a previous episode for time. So here we go. Tapir quiz. Question 1. There are at least 4 movies featuring tapirs that have been nominated for an Oscar. 2 have won Oscars. Which are they? Further hint, winners from 1968, 2022, and nom from 1974 and 2006.
Out of Africa.
Well, it didn't win, but there's a tapir in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Is
That's
that
one of them.
Okay. And that's it. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
the others.
So we got 2001:
English
Space
patient.
Odyssey. They say, despite the
Is
fact
Titanic,
that Africa
is there a tapir on board the Titanic?
could be in the crowd scenes, despite the fact that
Beautiful
Africa
mind.
is one of the only continents tapirs never existed on. They needed a weird prehistoric creature that looks like a food source that current people didn't really know about to interact with the early humans. So that accounts for them in 2001. And Papillon. I don't,
There's a tapir
Papillon?
in Papillon. I've seen that one.
yeah, there's a clip of a sleepy tapir knocking over its own water bucket.
Cool.
It's pretty cute. They said YouTube. Apocalypto. They say that they never
that
saw
makes
this, but know that there is an extended scene about eating tapir balls.
Oh, that's
and-
right. Okay, that's right. Because they trick him into doing it as like a prank. That's right. They're hazing him. Yeah.
And apparently in Encanto, there also are some
I
animated
remember the tapir in
ones.
Encanto. Well, Dan, I'm going to ask you to forward me this email because
Okay.
listeners, I don't remember if I mentioned it, but tapirs are big in my household because they are my younger son's favorite animal. We talk about tapirs a lot. He is a big fan of the tapir at the LA Zoo, who is named Mojito, and he. If there's a book about
I bet he's got some pretty good vibes right there.
he must. Yeah, he's a pretty laid back tapir. I mean, most tapirs are pretty laid back. And there's a tapir in Nashville that there's a picture book about. And so so my younger son's always like, "Can we go to Nashville someday?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard it's a real fun city." He goes, "I really want to meet that tapir." So to him, Nashville is Tapir City.
Mhm.
There are 2 other questions and a bonus. They're shorter than that first one.
Okay, but send me this. Forward me this.
I
email
will.
when the episode's over.
There is one NSFW video attached to this.
With a tapir in it?
Well, we'll get into it.
Okay, well, I won't show him that one.
In some cultures, tapirs represent a mythological creature called a Baku or Mo. According to legend, they were created by the spare pieces that were left over when the gods finished creating all other animals and it devours human dreams.
Ooh.
The sad movie, Hello Tapir, from 2020, features a relationship between a young boy and Bakus and was made in what country? What country? The answer, I see it on your face. You don't have it. Is Taiwan.
Oh.
I
I was just trying to
Yes,
remember what
Taiwan.
countries tapirs show up in because they're only in Asia and South America, right?
Yeah.
And fucking Nashville, dude.
And well, I mean but that's in a zoo.
By Malaysian director Kethvin Lee. I probably butchered that, but that's what I can do.
Prince Caspian. Yeah.
Question 3. There's a Pokemon modeled after a Baku tapir. Which is it? And for extreme bonus points, which film did it appear in?
I mean, one of the Pokemon movies. I assume. It
Probably
wasn't. It wasn't
Detective
Love Lies
Pikachu.
Bleeding.
No. Any
Was it-
idea
was it-
which?
Wasn't
It was-
Drive-In Dolls, right?
Yeah. Well, it's Drive Away Dolls.
Oh,
but-
Drive-Away
Yeah.
Dolls. Oh yeah,
Have you
Drive-In
ca-
Dolls is when they go to the movies.
Yeah,
Have you
that's
caught
simple.
them all? Do you know which one this is from your Pokemon
I
training?
don't know. Is it Snorlax? That sounds right.
Pretty close. It's Drowsy.
Drowsy.
What was I right? Is it Detective Pikachu?
No, Drowsy appears in the 2019 remake of Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution.
Right. I was going to say Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes
think-
Back remake.
In the
I figured
remake,
Mewtwo was involved somewhere. Yeah.
in the remake,
Mewtwo's the one with the like big ol' ass, right?
Yes, and a long
What?
tail, big
Yeah.
big feet, like a kangaroo bottom. Yeah.
Dan, you got to check this one out.
okay, I got
I
to
mean,
look
That's
at
the
probably
one-
the NSFW element of this.
Except Mewtwo, it's not the sexiest Pokemon, who we all know is, because I did a presentation
What?
about this not too long ago, Salazzle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look
in the
at the
remake.
pictures of her on her cards, and you're like, so is this Pokemon coming on to me? Like, what's
Wait,
going
hold on. How do you spell this? Salazzle.
S just like it sounds. Salazzzle.
Oh, I got it right first time. Amazing. Yeah, this looks like a seductive Pokemon. I got.
Oh,
like the way-
someone on a furry
Slinky.
site, it looks like doing a split. So that, yeah.
Drowsy appears in the 2019 remake of Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. In the remake, the pirate trainer who battles Ash has a Drowsy instead of a Golem. This change may have been made to fix a continuity error from the original movie where Pikachu defeats Golem with a Thunderbolt, even though Golem is a ground type and should be immune
So are
to
we not
electric
talking
attacks.
about tapirs anymore? What's going on in this letter? Dan?
No, we're just
Oh, wait,
talking about
okay, well, I'll get
I
back
think
to the
we may
tapirs.
need a heavier editorial
With
hand
the-
in this one.
Okay, bonus question. This isn't movie related.
Oh,
But-
perfect.
But tapirs are the mammal with the largest what compared to body size? The largest what compared to body
it's not-
size?
I mean, the thing is, they've got like a little trunk, but it shouldn't be that because I imagine elephants still have a bigger nose to body size, right?
Well, let's
Um,
recall that I warned that
Tweeners.
something may not
Tweener.
be safe for work, and that is indeed.
Anus.
There's a video included here. The penis is fully the same length as the leg. It is a real
Wow.
fifth leg situation.
So it can lift itself up on it. Oh, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
probably. Yeah, jacking with a tapir penis means a different thing. It's like a car jack. Anyway, so that's our letters section.
Oh,
for
wow,
this
we-
Oh, we
episode.
learned a
Really
lot
good
about
one.
tapirs and Pokemon.
We really did.
I think
This
I'm
is-
gonna. There's a lot of
we
good
filed this in
information.
educational.
A lot of good information there. I'm going to share with my son. Maybe not the last part.
I mean,
I mean,
you know.
it's kind of the most fascinating part,
Yeah.
in a way. But
I mean, not to. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the most fascinating to him, but
let's recommend movies that we watched that might be a better use of your time. I'll kick us off with the other movie that I teased before. Before we watched Fair Game, we watched a movie that has it shares a title
unfair
with
game.
no, it shares a title with another slightly more famous movie, even though that one also was not that successful. But it's not that one. It's called Last Man Standing from 1995. It is not the, I think, 1994 Bruce Willis movie.
Walter Hill, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that one. This one, it was a direct-to-video
This was the Tim
action
Allen
film.
sitcom, Last Man Standing.
Yeah. Dan's
Yeah.
recommending a sitcom. Classic Dan.
Dan doesn't play by the rules. Yeah,
That was the sitcom that the liberals were frightened of, right?
Yeah.
exactly.
No, this one stars Jeff Wincott. It has a sort of brief supporting role from Jonathan Banks, of course, beloved character actor Jonathan Banks. And it has who is
Jonathan Fuller, a.k.a. Giorgio from Castle Freak, baby.
Yeah, but I was amazed by this movie basically because it like in terms of practical stunt action sequences, it has some really, really fun ones, really impressive ones, particularly with the direct-to-video budget they must have been working with. They have a scene where they do a reverse on the LA freeway chase that is, it is no shame to say it is not as good as To Live and Die in LA, but it gives it a run for its money on a DTV budget. And I was really impressed by it. And it kicks off with a chase sequence where so much glass is just broken unnecessarily. Like any pane of glass you see in the frame will be broken by this.
I do think Run for Its Money is a good alternate title for To Live and Die in LA.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's probably a little hard to track down. I don't know. Maybe it's on Tubi or something. But Last Man Standing, 1995.
I think I threw it up on Just Watch, and it was like rentable somewhere.
Okay.
Maybe.
It's a lot of fun. It's a tight 96 minutes. It has a really wacky closing freeze frame. If that's the kind of thing you like, you'll like it.
You're speaking my language, Dan. As soon as Dan texted me immediately after watching it, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I was hooked.
I was like, this is for Stu. I know Stu loves his direct-to-video action. So.
I'm going to recommend a movie that unfortunately is basically going straight to video because not enough of you people went out and saw it. I'm going to recommend George Miller's Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Have you guys seen Furiosa yet?
I did see Furiosa.
I did indeed. If there's a movie I'm going to make time to go see in the theater, it's a George Miller Mad Max movie for sure.
And it's so much fun. George Miller understands that, like, that's why you go to the fucking movies, man. And it's like, it's not quite Fury Road. It's not like the tightness of very singular linear action sequence of a movie. But it's great. And you see stuff you haven't seen before and edge of your seat, nonstop, high octane thrill ride. And Chris Hemsworth is having the time of his life. I was a big fan.
This is my favorite of his performances by far.
Yeah.
In this movie.
I said something similar to this on Letterboxd, but I feel like I saw a lot of sort of like grumbles of like, and I'm not, you liked it, so I'm not saying this to you, but like a lot of grumbles of like, well, it's no Fury Road. And my reaction was like, oh, it's not one of the best action movies ever. It's just fucking amazing. Boo-hoo.
Well, like no movie set in that
Yeah.
world is going to pack the punch that Fury Road had, where it felt like this thing is coming out of nowhere, and you just don't expect how intense and how amazing it is. But it's still great.
The movie wisely doesn't try to be in the same vein. It's like, let's do something else within this universe.
But it feels like it's within it. It's a different thing within that universe, but still feels of a piece with that universe. It doesn't feel like now he forgot what was good about Fury Road. And it's worth seeing, if only just to see all the costumes look amazing. The different vehicles will look amazing. But you're like, well, I've seen every vehicle they can throw at me. And then by the end of the movie, they're riding a motorcycle that's made out of a mannequin torso.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah, you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen the Octoboss ride around on his flying contraption.
What about this guy? Have you seen this guy who's like flying like a kite from the back of a motorcycle?
That's what I'm saying.
I haven't seen it. I really love that movie. I would have recommended it, except I thought one of you had recommended it already. But I guess not. I guess that's why it's not
like
a huge
I
hit.
had to double check.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get the Flophouse bump.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think it's gonna be rentable or purchasable online soon. So
I mean, it'll live forever. The thing is, Fury Road was not a huge hit when it came out.
No.
I mean, I feel like none of the Mad Max movies, except for maybe Road Warrior, like maybe the first two were hits, but like luckily this one was subsidized so hugely by the Australian government that it did make a little bit of money.
That's good. I feel like we are living in a world now where hit is no longer relative to budget. Instead, it's just huge numbers. So like Mad Max and Road Warrior, when they came out in the United States, Mad Max 2, as they're known in Australia, like they were surprise hits, but it wasn't like they were in the top 5 movies of the year.
Right.
They just made a lot of money compared to their budgets.
Yeah.
Well, also everything now is so tied to opening weekend in a way that like is slowly killing the film industry. So, like, longevity. This will have a long tail.
Like Elliot said, this is going to live forever. It's a movie that I am really looking forward to rewatching soon and, like, discovering new things I missed the last time.
Yeah.
I missed them because I was in a theater where there were two people talking the entire movie.
No.
Oh, that's too bad. I was not, but I'm sure there's details I missed just because it's so packed with detail. You know, it's so... Anyway, I'd really like to too, but that's not what I'm here to recommend. Oh, but I figured I'd like to recommend... So Rebel Moon is ostensibly a science fiction movie, right? Like it's supposed to be a sci-fi action epic. And I thought I'd recommend two movies that I saw recently. One I had not seen before, one I've seen many times, that are also science fiction, but give you a different idea of what science fiction can do and are arguably better movies than Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. Should I start?
I'm intrigued.
Dan, should I start with the movie that our listeners may not have seen, or should I start with the movie that our listeners have probably seen but should watch
Start with
again?
the probably seen and then go obscure.
Okay, so on Father's Day, I went with my children and my wife. We went to the local movie theater, Vidiot's. They were showing a little movie called E.T., the Extraterrestrial, which at one point the most successful movie, dollar money-wise, in the history of movies, but a surprising number of people, I feel like, have not seen it in the years since then. And watching it again, I hadn't seen it in a couple years since we showed it to my older son. And watching it again...
I assumed you hadn't seen it since childhood, since you were so annoyed at being bedeviled by people.
No, I can't blame the movie for that. It's too good a movie. And just watching it, it's like all the things that I am frustrated about with a movie like Rebel Moon, E.T. does so beautifully, where it's like, I feel like I know these characters, where they live and how they live and who they are feels specific and yet universal because specific. The movie takes so much time to get you into the hearts of these characters before like action-y type stuff happens, and it all means something. You know, it's
before E.T. shows up and starts flipping and breaking dudes' heads open.
Before he uses his laser sword to just cut guns out of the hands of
he just
FBI
starts
agents.
blasting
and replace them with walkie-talkies.
Yeah, and it's just like it is such a powerful movie. Like it toys with your emotions so hard, but it does it so well. And like we showed it to my older son a couple years ago, and he got so upset, but then really loved it. We showed it to my younger son; it was so overwhelming to him. He got so upset, but in the way that a movie makes you upset when a sad thing happens in it and you are overwhelmed by it. And like it's so like every time I see this movie and I'm like, yeah, there's like this is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. And it's a story about an alien who becomes friends with a kid, which is a dumb idea for a plot in some ways, but it's because it is consistently hitting the emotion of the characters rather than like, oh, we've got to make sure there's a lot of like running and gunning, you know, and stuff like that. So it just does such a good job of being. And also, this is not like an art movie. This is a huge blockbuster movie. Like, this is the most middle-of-the-road storytelling you can get. And it's just done so well that, like, you're crying by the end of it. So, E.T., if you haven't seen it in a long time, I recommend you go back and watch it. If you've never seen it, you should go see it. Just be ready to cry. And the movie that you may not have seen, which is
I'm ready.
Yeah, you're ready. Dan's always ready to cry. That's his secret. He's always ready. Yeah. The other movie is also a science fiction movie, also from 1982, and I kind of am imagining a science fiction double feature in 1982 of E.T. and then the movie Liquid Sky, the independent science fiction film that is partly doubles as a portrait of a certain early 80s New York downtown kind of art scene, but is also the story of tiny aliens that live in a tiny flying saucer and are attracted to the chemicals of heroin use, but even more than that, are addicted to the chemicals of orgasm and have to kill men in order to retrieve it. And it's such a like beautiful looking movie in terms of like 80s new wave type look, and it's such a strange movie that kind of operates on a downtown dream logic, you know, and not a movie that everyone will like. It's got this great electronic score. There's also a very simple score, but it's another example of like, this is as much or more of a science fiction movie than Rebel Moon, and it was made for 1/320th of the money, and it feels so indelible. I'll be remembering images from this movie for the rest of my life and performances from it for the rest of my life when I've forgotten that Rebel Moon existed. You know,
I saw this just out of college in an era where it was much harder to find oddball movies just in general.
This is a movie I heard about
it was also
years
hard to
before I
find
ever got to see it. Yeah,
this movie in particular, but now it is on the Criterion Channel's Synth Scores collection, as well as being available on other streamers. But like that's probably where you're going to see the best print, I would assume. So I've been looking. I want to revisit it. I haven't watched it yet, but I would.
It's such a. I had actually tried to start watching this movie a while back, and the opening of it, it feels like I was like, this movie, is this a bad movie? Like the acting and the dialogue when it first starts are. It's like you have the same actress, Anne Carlisle, is playing a male character and a female character in the same scene, and the man is like, "You got the stuff? When are we going to get the stuff?" And it's like, this is like, it's like the most generic kind of drug talk. But as the movie goes on, it's almost like the movie was like, okay, we want to make sure anybody who might be thrown off by that is not watching the movie, because this movie is going to, it's the squares, it's just going to be too much for them. They are not going to be able to handle this. And by the time early on that the evil performance artist, drug dealer girlfriend of the main character is doing her performance art piece about her rhythm box and how, it's that by that point, the movie is like, okay, now we're going to start showing you what this movie is really like. And yeah, it just, I had been meaning to see it for years, and I finally saw it. And it's just, it's like, if you watch that in E.T., it's like, this is the breadth of type of science fiction movies that existed in 1982. Like, doesn't that make you feel sad that there's even the independent science fiction movies now, I feel like, are still trying to be kind of like, they're trying to do what E.T. does or what horror movies do. And the Rebel Moon movies are just doing Star Wars.
Did Liquid Sky make Sammy and Gabriel cry or no?
The weird thing, we watched it and I haven't seen them since then. In the middle of the night, they stole my car, and I've just seen they started an Instagram feed, and they're just painting their faces bright neon colors and going to late night raves and performance art things. And so they're really getting a city education, So they're just living the New York downtown lifestyle, So they really inspired them.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm glad that
great art can do that.
Yeah, this was one that I watched solo.
Okay.
As in, I watched it as Han Solo, dressed up as Han Solo. The vest and everything.
Yeah.
What else would he wear if it wasn't the vest?
Yeah.
What is like snow parka?
yeah, his Bespin outfit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just kind of like a white shirt, pants. Hey guys, thanks for taking this trip back to that old Rebel Moon with me.
When the Rebel Moon hits your eye like a big laser blast.
For the listeners, I just wanted to say quickly, like, we've been blessed with a lot of great guests recently, like terrific guests, and we've been doing sort of a lot of flashback episodes, in part because of that, in part because of other things. But if you like these, like, classic Peaches episodes where it's just the three of us and like a newer movie, rest assured we're not giving up on those. It was just a sort of a trick of scheduling that it ended up being a block of that. But we try and mix it up, and I think we'll do some more recent ones soon. Perhaps just with the three of us for a while.
I mean, part of the issue is that we are in a little bit of a movie relative drought too. Like, there's just fewer things coming out, but we've got some crap lined up that we'll talk to you about.
So before we go, I'd like to say go over to MaximumFun.org to check out other great shows on our network. And also, under the merch tab over there, we put up some new shirts. We haven't had new merch on the official Max Fun store for a while, but Tom Fowler designed us a beautiful shirt.
Tom Fowler.
It's available with or without sleeves. It looks like the Flophouse with a bunch of it's like roots or like kind of crackling electricity between roots and crackling electricity look. It looks very metal. It looks very cool.
It looks super metal. It looks really cool.
And also, thank you to Alex Smith, our producer. He goes by the name Howell Doughty on various socials. Last full episode, I handed him some bad audio, and he did some magic with it. We're glad to have him. So thank you, Alex. But that's it for now. For the Flophouse, I've been Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
I'm Elliot, the Scar Taker-Awayer.
Oh.
Kalen. Actually, guys, I don't know how to take scars away. I really promised a lot with that nickname, and I don't know how to
lasers?
do
Can't cash that
lasers?
Yeah, maybe I have to do laser dermatology. That's what I'll do.
Okay, bye. Whatever.
All right. Okay, I was waiting. I've been so used to having a guest. I'm like, and then there's a full. Oh, okay.
Oh, right. There's only three of us. I think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be an Alonzo around. I think we're
That's great.
alone now.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no
just
Scardinos. It's just the three of us clowns podcasting as fast as we
Oh
can.
man, we
can.
fucked up. We should have brought Meredith back because it could have been the Scardino giver.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, wow.
Right, and she would have loved watching this.
She would have loved this
styrofoam
movie.
this barely existent film.
Maximum Fun
A worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
supported
directly
by you.